Hi guys, hi everyone. Hey guys, hi everyone. Hello guys. I hope I'm audible. Hi Manthan. Hello, hello, hello Manthan. Hey. So I can see people are joining. Hi Saurav. Hi Idris. Hi everyone. So we'll be starting in few minutes. First of all, I hope everyone is doing great. Everyone is doing wonderful. So we'll be starting in few minutes only. Let's wait for rest of the people to join as well. And then accordingly we are going to start as well. Perfect. Thank you so much, Saurav, for the confirmation. Great. So, if we remember in our previous class, what we discussed is we discussed about what JavaScript is, right? We discussed about what variables are. We discussed about how we can create variables and what is the difference between var, let, and constant. In today's class, what we'll be doing is we'll be discussing about what actually data types are and what are the other operators that we did not discuss in our last class, and also we'll discuss conditionals. Okay, so let me share my screen. Please do let me know if my screen is visible or not. Is my screen visible, guys? Perfect, screen is visible, right? So let's start. We'll be starting in few minutes only. I'm waiting for rest of the students, okay, to join. So I can see there are 4 or 5 people, more people joining. Hi Sukdeep. Hey. Perfect, great. Okay, let's start. Let's not waste our time. Okay. So, in our previous class, we first of all discussed what JavaScript actually is. Okay. And then later on, what we did is we discussed about what variables are. And then later on, we discussed few types of operators, in which we discussed about simply arithmetic operators, bitwise operators that were very important operators, comparison, relational operators. In today's class, the first type of operator that we are going to see, which we did not discuss in our last class, are called logical operators, very important operators. But also, these operators make sense when we talk about conditionals. Okay, although we can understand them right now as well, but it will be better to discuss them later over there. But let me still at least tell you what are these operators. We usually have and operator and or operator. Remember in our previous video that we had our on, I will say, Monday maybe, right? Sorry, Tuesday. So we discussed about bitwise operator, where we discussed bitwise and bitwise or. In today's class we'll be discussing logical operators, but we'll be discussing it maybe at the end of today's class, because we have to understand conditionals first as well. Then what are we going to discuss now? Let's try to understand that. Okay, whenever we create any variable, whether we say var a, or we say let b, or we say constant c, every single time we actually until now simply created these variables and stored numbers only in it. But the point and the question that anyone might ask over here is, sir, can we only store numbers in these variables? The answer is of course not. We can store whatever we want. By whatever, let's try to understand what I mean. At this point of say time, can I say that whether I'm storing 10, 20, and 30, they are all nothing but actually data that I'm storing inside these three identifiers? The answer would be of course yes, right? Now we need to understand what are the different types of data that we can store inside this variable. And for that we will start our new topic, which is called data types. In JavaScript we have actually two types of data types. Okay, number one is called primitive, which are very much easy to understand. Another is called a non-primitive. They are easy as well, but comparatively with primitive, they are a little bit complex. Okay. And what are those? We will see that maybe in our next class. But in today's class, we'll be discussing only primitive data types. Now, when we talk about primitive data types, the number one data type which we have inside this particular category is called integers, or you can say in JavaScript numbers. Okay. Second thing over there is called Boolean. What are they? We will discuss them one by one. Third over here is called strings. Okay. Fourth is called null. And fifth is called undefined. There are other two as well, which are, if I talk about other primitive data types, which is begin, but we don't have to understand that at this point of time. But for today's class, we'll be discussing at least these five. Now let's directly jump over here and let's try to understand one very important cool point. Okay, so let me create a new file and let me name it day2.js. Come on, I have a small question over here. Okay, small question. Maybe few students over here might have already discussed other programming languages, right? Like C, Java, or something like that. In C or Java, we are actually defining our variables like this. Int a is equals to 10, something like this. Although this is not the proper syntax in JavaScript, but if I talk about Java, or if I talk about if I talk about C, this is how we usually define it. But my point of discussion over here is that whatever data we store inside those different languages, we have to tell it actually. Before storing, we tell it what the type of data I am storing. But is the same case with JavaScript? The answer is no. All the programming languages where you are telling your variable that this is the data type that I'm storing, those types of programming languages are called static typed programming language. What are they called? Static typed programming language. Now my question to you in the chat, please say yes or no. Is JavaScript static typed? Do you tell it before declaring that this is integer, this is decimal, this is string? The answer is, come on in the chat quickly. So the answer is, of course, no. In JavaScript, what we do is we directly write the value. It automatically understands whether it is an integer. If I declare another variable like this, it will automatically understand that this is a float value. So we don't have to specifically mention that I will store inside this variable integer, I will store inside this variable number or something else. These type of programming languages are called dynamic typed programming languages. So they are called dynamic typed programming language, and JavaScript is one of them. Okay, I hope I am pretty much clear with this particular point. Now, whether I store 10, which is an integer, whether I store any number with point in it, with decimal floating in it, both of them come in one category of data, which is called numbers. Now, my question is, can I store anything else? The answer is, of course, yes. What if I want to, let's suppose, store my name, right? Because programming is all about performing a task and nothing else. And task is, it's not necessary that my task will always be related to numbers. No, it can be related to with any type of data. Until now we have only dealt with numbers, but let me create any another. Let's suppose I will say my name is equals to what? Is equals to Adfar. Let's suppose, although there's an error that we will have, but my question to you is, what is the error? The error you need to understand over here is Adfar is a bunch of characters. This is nothing but bunch of characters. At this point of time, they are all alphabets. Whenever you have to store a data, that is combination of alphabets, combination of alphanumeric, whatever, we have to understand that type of data. In JavaScript is called strings. And whenever we have to store a string inside a variable, we will put either double quotes around the data, or we will put single quotes around the data. Both are treated as my strings inside my JavaScript. Perfect. Now, if I simply tell it, hey, console.log, as I told you in the last class, is simply to console what is inside this particular identifier, inside this memory slot. If I directly tell it, hey, tell me what is inside my name, we know inside that we have Adfar. So if I simply execute it, you will see in the output, it displays Adfar. Perfectly fine. Now, these are the two types of data that we have discussed, and both of them are primitive. What is another one? If you remember, I told you the second one is Boolean. What is Boolean? Since we know computers understand only zeros and ones, zero means low signal, high means one means high signal, right? Similarly, Boolean is again two logics only, either true or false. It has a special meaning to it. For example, if I say I am a boy, right? I have to understand what it is going to return. Of course, it will return true in this case. So we need to understand whenever we are actually even using, let's suppose, arithmetic operations, right? For example, not arithmetic, but comparison, relative. If I say A is greater than 10, when my A is 20, What does it mean? It means it will check over there whether it is satisfying this particular expression or not. The answer, of course, in this case is going to be true. But if we don't have true over there a specific meaning, if we don't give it a specific meaning, will we understand what true actually means? The answer is, of course, no. So we have another type of data inside our JavaScript which is called a Boolean. So I can also store. Let's suppose I will say condition, something like this, is equals to what? Is equals to true. You don't have to mention it inside double quotes. What will happen in the chat, guys, everyone? What will happen if I put this true inside double quotes or single quotes? What does that mean? That means right now this true does not have any special meaning to it, but it is a simple string, nothing else. So we need to understand that true is only, it's a keyword over there. It is a special meaning to it, which means one, which means high signal. Now, if I go over, if I say console.log and I will remove this my name, simply print condition. What it is going to do, it is going to simply execute this particular thing true. Similarly, if I tell it, hey, do one thing, create another variable. Let's suppose, let me create C. I will tell it inside this, simply check whether A is greater than B or not. We know 10 is not greater than 10.45. If I now go over there, tell it to display C in the output, you will automatically see in the output it says false. Now, false has a special meaning to it, which means it is zero, it is false. Whatever you are typing over there, it is not true. So, this is another type of data that we have. So until now we have seen three types of data. Number one is number. It can include any value in terms of numbers, in terms of numbers, digits over there. Second thing is strings, whatever we put in double quotes or single quotes. And related to string, it's not necessary we will write always alphabets. No, we can write 1, 2, 3 in it as well. It will still be string. Now my question to you is, what if I will remove this ADFAR? Right now, is this my name variable still a string? Yes or no? In the chat, come on. Do you think that this right now 1, 2, 3 is still a string or is it a number? Of course, the answer is it is still string, right? Why? Because I told you, does not matter what is in between of this double quote or single quote. Whatever you put over there in between, it will be always treated as string. Perfectly fine. Very good. Let's move forward. So these are the three types of data that we have discussed. What after that? We have over there null, we have undefined. Now let's suppose there's a a requirement over there. Okay, you have to simply let's try to understand in this way. You have to simply perform some arithmetic operation or something like that, whatever you want to do, whatever your requirement is. And you don't know, you know one thing for sure, that you have to define a variable d, but you don't know over there what I am going to store inside this D. You don't know right now what I'm going to store in this D. But what will happen if I simply say console.log D? Since D simply means I am telling it, hey, whatever I have stored inside this D, tell me that. So, have I stored anything in D? The answer is, of course, not. In this case, if I execute this, you will automatically see the answer is undefined. So undefined simply means whenever we declare something, but we don't assign a value to it. So that type of variable, that type of data in our JavaScript is called undefined. But since we understood undefined as well, then what's the difference between null and undefined? Come on in the chat. Meanwhile, I explain what null is. Everyone is supposed to type in the chat what actually null means. Let's suppose I will define another variable which is going to be e. It is going to be equals to null directly, which means when I write null over there, it has a special meaning to it. It is a keyword over there that I am typing, which means inside my memory, I am deliberately telling it, hey, it is null. It has no values over there. Null means nothing, right? Zero, something like that. Although we need to understand over there, if I simply say console.log e, if I try to execute it over there, you will still see the answer is null. It is not saying undefined. Undefined means maybe I might later on define it over there. But right now, what I am doing is I am actually assigning a value. Although null by the meaning it means nothing, but still null is a keyword which I am assigning to a variable which is e. So these are 5 types of primitive data that I have inside our JavaScript. Similarly, if you remember, I told you that there is one another type of data that we have. which is called a non-primitive. In non-primitive, later on you will see we will discuss arrays, we will discuss objects, which are also very much important. Like these two are most important data types in our JavaScript, but we will discuss them later, and we will understand why these types of data are called primitive, why these types of data are called non-primitive, but that's a later discussion. Okay, now we have understood what types of data we can store inside our variable in our JavaScript. There is a one of the operators which we did not discuss in our yesterday's, although not yesterday, in our previous session, which is double equal to and triple equal to. And this is the important question related to interviews as well. People ask, hey, what is the difference between these two? For example, let's try to understand this particular example over here. Okay, and remember, whenever you write any statement in JavaScript, it is not necessary you will put semicolon at the end. It will still execute. Okay. Just say, for example, in C or Java, you have to put semicolon at the end of statement, but in JavaScript, you can ignore it. Okay. Now let's go over the, let me create a new file. Let me say day2a.js. Perfect. I will define two variables. Let's suppose I will say let a is equals to 10. Okay. Then I will say let b is equals to 20. Try to understand this. Or let's say b is equals to 10 as well. Okay, let's say b is equals to 10 as well. Now, what I'm doing is I'm telling it, hey, do one thing. Inside my C variable, simply check. This is, I'm comparing it. These are called comparison operators. Okay. I am telling it over there, please check what is going to happen if I say A is equals to B. What's going to happen? Or instead of storing it in a variable, I will directly print it. That will be, that will save a line of code as well. What I will do is I will simply tell it A is equals to B. What do I mean by equals to equals to? Equals to is a comparison operator. It will check the left hand side and right hand side, and it will compare to check whether they are equal or not. Although there's a condition over here, but we will understand that in a second. What do you think right now? Is my A equals to B? The answer is, of course, 10 is equals to 10. So if I execute it, you will automatically see in the output it says true, which means A is actually equals to B. This is a comparison operator. I am comparing two sides of an expression over there. Now, there's a catch. And if I put triple equals to, even if I execute it right now, you will still see true. So what's the difference? Triple equal to also compares two sides of an equation. Then what's the difference? The difference is this. What if I will write this particular 10 as a string? This is a number, this is a string. And do you think right now both are same? Of course not. One is a number, another one is string. So of course both cannot be same. But if you see the value inside those quotes over there is exactly what the value of A is. So now if I execute it, you will still see true in the output, which means when I am using double equals to in an expression, it will not check the data type, it will not compare the data type of those two operands, but it will check the value actually. So it over here 10 is exactly equals to 10, so it is returning true. But what if I will right now write triple equals to? So if I execute it right now, you will automatically see it says false, which means when I am using triple equal to, it is also a comparison or comparator operator over there, but it will not just check the value, but also it will compare the data type of both the operands. Am I clear? Yes or no? Very good, Kashmir the Paradise. Very good. Am I clear? Do you understand this? So that is the difference between double equal to and triple equal to over there. Now, this is a very important interview question. So let me again repeat quickly. If I'm using double equal to operator and I am putting it in an equation to compare two sides of that equation, it will not actually compare it as data type, but it will compare it as value only. Which means in this case, the value of this particular B is 10, but the data type is string. The value is 10 and data type is integer. Which means if I use double equal to only, the equation, the expression over here stands true because it does not concern with the data type over here. But now as soon as I put equals to, it actually checks value as well as it checks over there what's it called, a data type. Now that's clear. I hope this particular operator is clear. Perfectly fine. What if now let's move a little bit forward over there. I told you that there is one another type of operators which we have not discussed, which is called logical operators. Let's try to understand what this logical operator means over here. Okay, quickly. And I want everyone to be a little bit active in the chat and a little bit help me over here with these operators. So I have told you there are two logical operators that we usually use. Although there is another one as well, but we will see that later on. यहाँ पे हमारे पास the first logical operator that we use is called and logical operators. And logical operators. So what does this and logical operator mean? It says that whenever we use this operator in an expression, it will have a left hand side. Then I will put an operator in between, it will have a right hand side. Whenever I'm using this and operator, this whole equation will return true only if this is true as well as this is true. Which means if both sides of this equation are true, then this whole expression are going to return true. That's it. For example, I will go over here in this case and I will, write over here. Let's suppose A is 10, B is over there. Let's suppose 15. What I will do is I will simply tell it console.log. Okay, tell me what is the output, whether it will return true or false. I will tell it A is greater than 10. Perfect. Of course, you need to understand what is the logic over there. Is my A greater than 10? The answer is, of course, no, right? So it will be false. But now, if I write over there greater or equal to, in this case, it is going to return true. These operators, greater equal to, we have seen already. But what if I will now put and over here? I will say B is less or equals to 15. B is less or equals to 15. So if you look closely to this expression over here that I have, you need to understand this is left side of the equation, this is right side of the equation. Is this true? The answer is yes. Because A is equals to 10, answer is true. Is B less or equal to 15? The answer is true. If both sides of this and an operator are true, then of course the whole equation will return true. So that is why if I execute it over here, you will see in the output the answer is true. But now let me remove this equals to sign. Is my B less than 15? Is my B less than 15? Let's try to see that. This, of course, is true because A is equals to 10. Is my B less than 15? The answer is, of course, not. So this is going to be false, which means this and whole expression does not return true from the both sides, which means doesn't matter whether one is true or not, the whole equation is going to return false over there. Give me a yes or no in the chat quickly. Am I clear? Am I clear with this? Meanwhile, you say yes or no. I have told you that there is one another logical operator that we have, which is called or. This or operator is again, we will have LHS, we will have then or operator, we will have RHS. It says doesn't matter whether both are true or not, at least if one is true, the whole equation is going to be true. At least one has to be true over there. One has to be true over there. If one is true, the whole equation over here is going to be true over here. Okay, now for that, let's go over here, let's try to understand what we mean. So if I simply put or now, I have removed the and. Although, let me copy this before going over here. Let me copy it and let me directly put or like this. Okay. So if I execute this particular application over there, this particular code, for this, of course, it is false because both are not true. But for this particular equation, you will see it being true. Why it is true over there? Because we need to understand or means only one has to be true, इधर दिस और दिस, चाहे दोनों में कोई भी ट्रू है ये चलेगा. हे हर्ष, हाय हर्ष, हाय. Perfect. Now I hope these two operators are clear. Perfect. Yes or no in the chat. Quickly, guys. Now let me create a new file in the meantime and let me name it day2.b.js. Now let's move a little bit forward. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Okay, you can ask me anytime, any questions. I will be very, happy to repeat as well. Perfect. Now let me go over here and now let's try to understand another very important thing, which is this. Guys, do you think Whenever we talk about programming, whether in JavaScript, whether in Java, whether in C, or any type of programming language over there, I have told you in our last class, there are approximately more than 700 programming languages right now in this universe. Okay, do you think we will always be performing only addition in our programming? We will always be performing only these arithmetic operations, simply comparing two sides of an equation or checking whether it's less or greater, something like that? The answer is of course not. Because programming is made to do wonders in this universe. For example, right now I am seeing this particular board on which I am typing something. It is created because of coding, right? So we need to understand that coding actually बहुत बहुत कुछ कर सकता है. But right now we have only understood what we can do with help of our operators. Now let's move another very basic construct of our programming, and that is nothing but actually conditionals inside our JavaScript. Very important thing. Okay, now tell me one thing over here. Tell me one thing. When I talk about conditionals, what do I mean? I mean that I sometimes would want to write in which there might be conditionals only. For example, I would say if my A is greater than 10, or if my A is even, please tell me whether it is even or not. Okay, so what am I doing? I am actually getting an output based on condition over there. We have to understand over there, it is not always we will store numbers and strings or booleans inside variables and we will check them in the output. No, I am right now making you understand what variables are. But with those variables, now we need to do lot of stuff. We need to create real applications, and the first step in order to do that is called conditionals. The first conditional statement inside our JavaScript is called if. So we write if, then we write bracket, and then these curly braces. What is this brackets? What is this curly braces? Remember, whenever we write logic anywhere, whether any programming language, we need to always follow its syntax. Syntax means how actually it is written inside that particular programming language. So when I talk about if keyword over there, if statement inside our JavaScript, we need to write it like this. We will write if as if, then we will put brackets and then curly braces. In between of these brackets, there will be a condition. So we will write over there a condition. Now, if this condition is true, then only it will execute whatever statements I will write inside this particular curly brace. That's it. That is the working of my if the condition is true, then only it will execute these statements. If the condition is false, it won't execute these statements. Simple as as simple as it can be. Now let's go over here. Let me simply create a variable. Let's say I am going to create a variable. Let a is equals to whatever variable, whatever data. Okay, 20 over here. After this, I will write a condition. If my a is greater than 10, is this condition true or not? Is my a greater than 10? Please tell me in the chat. In the meantime, I will tell it. In that case, simply tell me hello LaMiCons. Okay, what am I doing? I am telling it print this statement only if the condition is true. If the condition is true, then only print it. So if I execute it right now, you will automatically see in the output it says hello LaMiCons. But what will happen if I make this condition false? If a less than 10, which is of course not true, because a is of course greater than 10, in this case you will see the output will be absolutely nothing. Why? Because this statement entirely depends on whether this condition is true or not. So now we have included another very important basic fundamental construct inside our programming, after variables, after data types, after operators, which is conditionals. Now, of course, there's not just one type of condition, not just if. There's another variant of this if condition, which is what will happen? What will we do if we want to associate a statement with it, even when the condition is false? We want, if the condition is true, this should be executed. But if the condition is false, something else should be executed as well. And in that case, we use one another thing, which is called, with this if, we combine another keyword, and that is called else. So we say else and then a curly brace. And then in these curly braces, we also write statements. Now, this is very important for us to understand that now whether this statement will be executed or this statement will be executed, but only one will be executed, that we know for sure. This entire, whether this statement will be executed or this statement will be executed, it entirely depends on whether the condition is true. If the condition is true, this statement will be executed. If the condition is false, this statement will be executed. So if I write now, go now in the output, I will write else, right? Else what? Else I will say console dot log over there, okay, dot log, and I will say hello Adfar. So if you see right now in the output, since condition is false, you will see it will execute else statements over there. Now hello answer is printed, which means else statement is in the output. Now what will you do if there are more than one conditions, right? If a is less than 10, for example, you would want to check whether a is less than 20, and then third condition whether a is less than 13. In that case we use nested if else. What do we do? There is a concept inside our JavaScript, and also most of the languages we use nested if else. What does nested if else mean? That I will use if, I will write condition, then I will use else, inside this else I will use another if, then this if will have its own statements, I will have again its own else, इसके अंदर मैं एक और if use कर सकता हूं, so on and so forth, depends on entirely my requirements over there. What will happen if I say if a is greater than 10? Maybe this is another question. Okay. Or if a is greater than 10, in that case, what it is going to do is it is going to simply print this. Now, do we need another else? No, it's completely up to us. In JavaScript, we don't have to every time write else with if. No, if can be, uniquely as well, solely as well. We don't need else with it. So if I execute it, you will still see hello Adfar. Why? Because 20 is actually greater than 10. But what will happen if I write make my a 10? Is this condition true? Of course not. Is this condition true? Of course not. So in that case, what I will do is I will execute this. So if you see, there is nothing in the output. Why? Because both the conditions are false, which means neither this will be executed, neither this statement will be executed. So what have we learned in this, if else? We have understood that if the condition is true, then only its block will be executed. If the condition is false, it will go to its else part. Okay. Now after this, what I can do is I can also write else. I can also write if another. I will say a is equals to is equals to is equals to. I have told you what the difference between these two is. So remember, whenever you have to compare any variable with its content, try to use every single time 3 equals to. So if I write it like this, I will simply say console.log. I will say a is equal to 10. Okay. Now if I execute it, you will automatically see the statement for which the condition is true is actually executed in the output over here. Right? As simple as it is. So this is our if else if ladder. Now let's suppose you have to create a program, and you might have done this at least 100 times until now, which is to check whether a is even or not. So you have to write a program in which you will simply check whether a number over here is even or odd. So how do you check whether a number is even or odd? You simply divide that number by 2. If the remainder after divided by 2 is 1, the number will be odd. If the remainder after divided by 2 is 0, the number is going to be even. We know that. And how do we write that logic? We will write that logic like this. I am going to simply write a condition. If my a, should I write divided by 2 or should I write some other operator? Tell me quickly in the chat. I have taught you in our previous class, I have taught you that there is one very special operator that we use not to get quotient after division, but to get remainder over there after division. What is that arithmetic operator, guys, called? It is called over there modulus. We use percent over there, and this percent, I will tell it, when you divide a with 2, if the remainder over there is equals to 0, so percent modulus, this percent sign will always return you the remainder. It will not return you anything else. If this is the case, in that case, what it is going to do, it's going to console. What it is going to simply say, A is even. What it is going to say, it's going to say A is even. Because my remainder is 0. When A is divided by 2, if the remainder is 0, of course, in that case, what it means that A is even over here. I will write else. If this condition is not true, what does that mean? That means automatically what? A over here is odd. Since A is 10, it is after divided by 2, it is going to return remainder 0. So it automatically means in the output it says A is even. But if I write over there 1, what does that mean? That means we are checking it for odd. Although we already have else block for that, so it will check it for odd. So now let's make number over there to be odd. So if I execute it like this, you will automatically see it says A is odd. So this is simple example of what? This is simple example of my if else inside my JavaScript with this particular block, and they are very often used in your programming, guys. So remember, if you have any confusion right now, ask. Okay, so please and please make sure that you remember these syntaxes. It is if, then you inside brackets you write over there condition, then inside curly braces you write statements. Guys, tell me in the chat if I write something like this. Okay, let me comment this as well. Okay, if I write if one, if one, then I will say console.log adfer. Do you think right now adfer is going to be in the output? If one, console.log adfer. If I execute it, you will automatically see adfer in the output. Why? Because my condition right now is returning boolean 1. 1 means true. So as long as this condition is over there 1, condition is returning true, its statement will be executed. But what will happen if I go make it deliberately 0? If I execute it over there, you will automatically see nothing in the output. Why? Because there's no else block associated to it. So that's about if over here. There's one another fundamental block that we use inside our JavaScript, which is called switch. A switch keyword. Let's try to understand this. A very important keyword as well, a very important conditional block as well. You will later on actually see over there how important it is when you will actually implement your JavaScript in your web development, in your HTML and CSS. What it will do is it will also have a bracket in which you will simply write expression. You will simply write expression. But this time, what we will have is we will actually have multiple cases. What do I mean by that? Let's try to directly understand that over here in the output. Okay, I will go over here. Let me comment all of these things. Done. And let me go and jump a little bit down and let me create a variable which is going to be A is equals to, let's say, 25. Perfectly fine. I will use a keyword. Please try to understand. It's very important keyword. Okay. I will tell it switch and I will write over here expression. Expression simply means over there on basis of what I will actually write my cases. Okay, so what will I do in this case? I will simply tell it based on my A. Switch between the cases based on my A over there, and then I will simply write this curly brace. Remember, whenever we use, whether we use for loops, whether we use later on we will see loops, whether we use functions, whether we will use if else's or all these things, we have to understand over there these curly braces actually represent very important thing, which is that from here this is a block that I'm starting, a block that will be only associated with this particular switch, a block that will be only associated with this particular if. As soon as it is terminated, this entire block is terminated. Its logic, its variables. For example, I will define let A is equals to 10. Okay. Later on, maybe, although in switch we won't define it. Why? Because it is conditional block. But maybe I am writing anytime functions or something like that. I will define variables inside it. Will I be able to implement them outside of this curly brace? We need to understand that. What is scope? But वो शायद हम next class में पढ़ेंगे. ठीक है? Over here, whenever we talk about switch, in this we use another keyword which is called a case. I will say case, then I will write values with which I want to compare this A over here. For example, I will write 10 and then I will put a colon. Colon, and you can automatically see now this space is automatically given, which is over there indentation. Let me put console.log hello LaMiCons. Okay, let me click again enter. Let me write case 2. Case 2 is 20. In this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write console.log. It says hello Adfar. Perfectly fine. Similarly, over there, what I will do is I will write again case 30 or 25. Since A is 25, let me write A25. Console.log, I will say A is 25. Okay. Now we need to understand over there what is the logic that I am trying to write over there. I am actually telling it switch, as the name itself says, switch. Okay, for the value A, for the expression A over there, in which you will switch between the cases. If this case is matched, then execute it. If this case is matched with the expression, then execute it. If this case is matched with the expression that I've then executed. So if I execute it over there, you might see in the output over there, it says A is 25. Let's see. It says A is 25. Why? Because this particular case is matched with it. Do you understand that? Do you understand that? Now let's try to execute it. Of course not. What will happen if I simply make A to be 10? According to the logic we understood, this is the case that we are matching with, which means it should display only this thing in the output. But if I execute it right now, you will see all of these things in the output. You see hello LaMiCons as well, you see hello Adfar as well, you see A is 25 as well. Now if I make over there this 20, you will see this is the case that is matching to it, but it will print hello Adfar as well, and it will also print A is 25 over here. It will not print this, but as soon as any case that is matched with it, automatically rest of the cases will be printed in the output as well, because it has matched the expression, which means there is a problem that we have to avoid, we must avoid, which is whatever expression, whatever case matches that expression, only that thing should be in the output. So what switch is doing is it is simply checking all these cases one by one. If this is matched, it will simply print rest of the outputs automatically with it. So we somehow have to tell it, as soon as your case is matched, stop there. Don't check rest of the cases. I'm not interested in checking next cases. As soon as your case is simply matched, break the logic over there. Come out of this particular block. Don't check rest of the cases over there. And for that, we use a very special keyword inside our switch, which is called a break, guys. So I will use break everywhere. Break simply means if this is this case that is matched, don't check rest of the cases. Now if I execute it, you will automatically see in the output only the case which is matching with this A is executed, printed in the output, which is hello Adfar. So with respect to switch conditional statements, break keyword plays a very important role. Remember that. Now let's suppose, now what happens, let's again quickly revise it. What happens, it simply checks the expression. It will directly go over there and it will see case 10. Is my A 10? Of course not. So even it will not even bother to go inside this particular case. It will directly from here, it will directly take a jump, check another case. As soon as it checks the expression, it sees okay, it's correct. It will go now inside this particular case, inside this colon, and then it will actually execute this. As soon as it detects the break, it will not check rest of the cases, it will simply come out of this block to execute it perfectly. But what will happen if I now write an expression which is, let's suppose, 30? Okay, and none of my cases are matching with it. If you see over there, none of my cases are matching with it. If I right now execute it, you won't see anything in the output. There's nothing in the output right now. You can see that. Which means what will happen if none of my expressions are matching with my cases? Then we would still want sometimes to at least give a default output to us. Tell me no cases are matching. Give me a message over there so that I might understand, user might understand over there what is actually happening over there. So for that, every switch can have another keyword, and that another keyword is called a default. This default will be executed only if no case is matching. So I will simply say over there default case like this. Now since no case is matching, if I execute it, you will automatically see it says default case, which means switch This is the complete syntax of switch cases over there. Complete statement of switch cases, which means we will write switch in brackets, we will write expression, then inside curly braces we will write our multiple cases, and whatever case matches, that should be in the output. But if you want only that case to be in the output, you must write a very important keyword with it, which is called a break. Now you can think of lot of problems with help of this if. Okay, so I would want every single person over here to write a program related to if else or related to switch, in which you will simply find, create three variables A, B, C, store three numbers inside those three variables, and simply display the greatest of those three in the output. But that is your homework. I would expect you to type, the answer of that particular problem in the chat as well. Now let's move forward. Let's move forward. Let's not, stop over here. In my JavaScript, since I have told you, our objective is very much different. Although our the better sentence would be, our objective can be very much different. It will not be always to find even odd, prime numbers or anything related to numbers. It is actually, my main agenda is to make you understand what all these things is, so that later on I can implement the same logic inside my web development, so that I can make my websites dynamic. Remember, in our previous video, I have told you that when we include JavaScript with HTML and CSS, we can make our websites dynamic. So that is our main agenda, to make you understand how you can later on implement all of this logic inside your websites, create wonderful websites over there. There's one another very important topic that we need to understand in any programming language, especially right now in JavaScript, which is called loops. Let's try to understand what loops are. Okay. Let me give you a small exercise. Let's suppose you have to print numbers between 1 to 1000. Simple. You have to print numbers between 1 to 1000, which means 1, 2, 3, 4, so on and so forth, up to 1000. Will you write console.log1, console.log 2, console.log 3, console.log 4, similarly so on and so forth, write console.log 1000 times? You can. If you have that much spare time, of course you can, and it will display that output. But programming is always about writing minimum code, writing code efficiently, okay, optimized code over there, which means we need to somehow find a solution to these things, while same statements are actually repeating itself, maybe with different values if there's a pattern. But the main agenda is we want to execute statements that are actually repeating themselves. So if we want to execute a statement over there continuously for some time over there, we use a construct, basic programming concept inside our programming, which is called loops over there. But you need to understand over there one thing, which is the most important thing about loops, guys. The most important thing, that if I create a loop, I will tell it print my name, and I will execute my code. It will execute for infinite amount of time. It will write for in the output infinite amount of time, which we would not want, because ultimately if you execute a condition, if you execute an instruction statement infinite time, it is going to make maybe hang your system over there. It will never stop. Which means whenever we talk about loops will be only effective if we provide a condition to it. With help of that condition, I will tell it print only 100 times, print only 10 times, print only 5 times, which means I am actually telling it over there to execute a statement, but not execute it infinite amount of time, but actually with help of a condition over here. Let's take an example. Let's suppose I have a robot. Okay, I have a robot, and that robot is supposed to maybe make something for a maybe omelette over there for a mehman, right? So what will he do? He will simply write some instructions over there. Hey, do this, do that, and prepare an omelette. Let's suppose there are 100 members that are coming to visit me. Will I write the same program 100 times and execute it 100 times? The answer is of course not. So what will I do? I will simply tell it, hey, these are the instructions. Simply start at 1, end at 100, execute it 100 times. But if I don't give it upper bound over there, if I don't tell it to stop at 100, it will repeat it actually infinite amount of times, and it will make infinite omelets as well, which will be a problem, because robot to khatam hi ho jayega, right? We need to understand that loops are only effective if given upper bound, if given a finite condition, so that it will execute it finite times. But it does not mean we will not have infinite loops. We can have infinite loops as well. Now, with respect to loops, inside our JavaScript, we have three types of loops. How many loops? Three types. Number one over here is called for loop. Number two is called over there while loop. And number three is called do while loop. All of them are actually supposed to simply loop around some statements and provide some output, although there's a proper difference between all of them. But that difference over here we will see in our next session on Friday. Okay. But I would want all of you to come a little bit prepared as well and ask a few questions, because I cannot see people asking any questions in the chat. Okay. So in our next video, in our next session on Saturday, we will be discussing about loops. We will be discussing about what all these three things are, and then we will discuss about functions, which is going to be very important. In next class, we'll be discussing about loops, and then we will be discussing about functions. After that, we will discuss about execution context, and we will discuss about call stack. So these are going to be our next two classes which we'll be discussing. Also, guys, since you all know that you will be getting a free certificate out of this course from LaMiCons, but for that there's a very important condition that you have to fulfill. We have to use a proper conditional statement in that as well, right? Which is filling that Google form. You have to fill that Google form so that we can get your details, and then we can actually send you properly a certificate as well. But you have to also make sure you have to join all these sessions on time. So please fill that Google form. That LaMiCons is actually pasted in the chat. There's a Google form link which you will find in description as well. So please fill that to get free certificate. So let's meet in our next class. Thank you so much for joining this session. I hope you have enjoyed, and also please feel free to give feedback in the chat. We'll be waiting. Thank you so much, guys. See you soon, very soon. Bye.